Do you remember that feeling? You know, you pick up an English text, maybe it's that new novel everyone's talking about, or a really important report for work.
Yeah.
And you start off like really enthusiastic, right? Full of confidence.
You're ready to go.
But then something happens, the excitement kind of fades, you hit maybe a dense paragraph.
Or just a few words you don't know in one sentence.
Exactly. And boom, the flow just stops dead. And you feel lost, maybe a bit overwhelmed. And that text you were excited about suddenly feels like a chore, like homework.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of deceleration, where the language itself feels like this huge, frustrating barrier. It's incredibly common.
Right.
All this amazing knowledge, all these stories are out there in English waiting for you.
Yeah.
But actually reading it efficiently. You know, absorbing the ideas without constantly stopping to look things up. That feels almost impossible for so many learners.
It really does. And that barrier, that specific feeling, is exactly what we're here to try and dissolve today. Forget those really painful, inefficient ways of doing things, like stopping to translate every single noun or verb. It just kills the momentum.
Completely.
So we really dug deep. We've gone through a whole stack of expert curated sources, things from applied linguistics, cognitive psychology,
or real mix.
And we've tried to pull out what we think are the 10 most powerful, simplest, and honestly fastest ways to fundamentally change how you read English. We're calling them the essential shortcuts to mastery.
And our mission here in this deep dive is pretty comprehensive. We're not just chasing like raw speed, reading super fast but not understanding anything.
Right, that's useless.
Totally. We're focused on strategies that actually lead to profound comprehension, better vocabulary retention, and maybe the most important thing, genuine enjoyment.
Yeah, you have to enjoy it.
Exactly. We're distilling advice that's specifically tailored to help you absorb knowledge quickly and thoroughly. So you're not just scanning words, you're actually, digesting the ideas behind them.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack all this knowledge. We've broken these 10 shortcuts down into 3 sort of critical phases.
Makes sense.
First, we'll look at the groundwork, the motivation piece. Then second, the active toolkit, what you actually do while reading.
The strategies.
Right. And third, the synthesis and mastery part, how to make it stick afterwards.
Okay.
So let's kick off with section 1. This is all about building that solid foundation, the stuff that makes learning sustainable for the long haul. Okay, shortcut number 1. And this really hits at the heart of making this work long term. It's the power of personal interest. Start exclusively with material you genuinely love.
This sounds so simple, but it's foundational.
Yeah,
and it's
right.
something learners violate all the time.
How so?
Well, they feel this pressure, right? They think they should be tackling, serious literature or dense academic papers right away. Because that's what real English students do.
Ah, the shoulds, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But the collective wisdom, all the linguistics research we looked at, it points to this crucial neurological truth.
Yeah.
Reading is just significantly easier and way more sustainable when the content itself excites you.
Okay.
If you already care about the subject, maybe it's Formula One racing or baking or the latest tech gadgets.
Whatever your thing is.
Right. Your brain is already primed. It wants that information.
I can totally see the psychological boost there. Like, if a topic is boring me to tears, the second I hit a word, I've got 2 reasons to just put the book down. 1, it's dull. 2, it's hard.
Precisely.
But if it's something I'm genuinely fascinated by, say I found a blog about, urban exploration,
Okay.
I'm much more motivated to push through that tricky vocabulary because I want the interesting stuff on the other side.
That's exactly it. The research shows a really clear link between that intrinsic motivation, the wanting it, and how well you retain information.
How does that work biologically?
Well, when you're engaged, your brain releases neurochemicals, things like dopamine. And these chemicals essentially tag that information, saying, hey, this is important, pay attention.
Oh, okay.
So those new words, they stop being just abstract definitions on a page. They become the tools you need to unlock valuable, interesting knowledge.
Right.
And the source material really hammers this home. That inner drive makes you dramatically more likely to actually finish what you start reading.
And finishing things feels good, builds momentum.
Huge win. Arguably the biggest factor for long-term consistency. If you never finish anything, why would you keep starting?
Okay, but here's the potential issue. What if my hobby is, say, collecting stamps.
Okay.
If I only read about stamps, yeah, I'll nail the vocabulary for perforations and watermarks.
Okay.
But won't I miss out on all the other English I need, like for work emails or understanding the news, more formal stuff?
That's a really valid point, and it's a common concern. The advice isn't to only read about stamps forever. It's about where you start. You use your passion stamps, in this case, to build the habit of reading in English and, crucially, the confidence that you can do it.
So it's about associating reading with pleasure first.
Exactly. Get that positive feedback loop going. Once that habit is solid, maybe after, say, 6 months of consistent reading about things you love, then you start to strategically branch out.
Okay, diversify later.
Right. For now, let passion be your fuel. You'll absorb vocabulary more naturally just through sheer volume because you're actually reading a lot. And early on, volume and consistency often trump variety when you're just trying to build that foundation.
That makes sense. Build the engine first, then worry about the different types of roads you'll drive on.
Good analogy. Yeah.
Okay, that sets us up perfectly for shortcut number 2. Because passion is great, but it needs a reality check, right? Which is calibrating difficulty. You absolutely must read at the right level.
Mm-hmm. Enthusiasm alone won't get you through, advanced quantum physics if you're just starting out.
Definitely not.
And this is the classic pitfall. So many learners, they push themselves too hard. They pick up a book, maybe a famous novel, and they realize they don't recognize like 40% of the words on the first page.
Yeah.
That's not really reading anymore, is it? It becomes this exhausting translation exercise.
Oh, by word. Yeah.
And it just guarantees burnout. It builds anxiety around reading, which is the opposite of what we want.
So what is the right level? How do we find that sweet spot?
Well, if you're constantly looking up words, say more than 3 or 4 words in a single paragraph,
okay,
you're breaking the flow too often. Your brain never gets a chance to build up any reading speed or fluency because it's constantly stopping and starting. The effort you're putting in just isn't giving you enough reward in terms of understanding the overall meaning.
Right. The effort to reward ratio is way off.
Exactly. So the sources strongly recommend starting with something called graded readers. Are you familiar with those?
I've heard the term. They're like simplified versions.
Pretty much. They're books or texts specifically written or adapted for language learners. They use controlled vocabulary lists and specific grammatical structures that match different learning levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced.
So they give you a kind of safety net.
Precisely. They're designed to provide success within a manageable boundary. It helps build confidence.
Okay, so graded readers are a great start. But what about finding regular, real-world texts at the right level, like news articles or blogs?
That's where rules of thumb come in handy. The consensus among the experts we looked at often points to something like the 3-word rule, or sometimes the 5-word rule.
Meaning,
if you find yourself needing to look up or even just really struggling to guess the meaning of more than about 3 to 5 words on a single page,
okay,
then that particular text is probably too difficult for efficient learning right now. Doesn't mean you can't read it later, but for building skills, it's likely counterproductive.
That's really practical. 3 to 5 words per page feels like a challenge I can handle mentally. 20 words per page. Forget it.
Exactly. It's a manageable hurdle. You're still learning new things, but you're not drowning.
Are there other ways to gauge difficulty, like sentence length?
Yes, absolutely. The sources also mention things like readability formulas, like the Flesch-Kincaid scale. You don't need to, calculate scores yourself.
No, please, no math.
No, but the principle is useful. These formulas generally look at average sentence length and the number of syllables per word. Shorter sentences and more common words mean easier reading.
So look for texts with shorter sentences, at least initially.
That's a good strategy. The key thing is progression. As your vocabulary grows and your confidence builds from reading at the right level,
you gradually increase the difficulty.
Exactly. You step up the challenge slowly. This structured approach avoids that constant feeling of being overwhelmed. And really importantly, it helps you associate reading with success, not struggle.
Success breeds success. Makes sense.
It builds that necessary self-assurance.
Okay, so we've got interest and we've got the right difficulty level. This leads us naturally to the engine that drives it all. Shortcut number 3, the consistency advantage. You have to build a daily reading habit.
Right. The first 2 points were about what you read and how hard it should be. This one's about when and how often.
And this is where many people fall down, isn't it? They think they need huge blocks of time.
Exactly. Learners often mistakenly believe they need to carve out like 3 hours every Saturday afternoon for some intense English reading session.
The binge reading approach.
Yeah. But the core insight we found across all the research, it's non-negotiable. Consistency beats intensity in language learning.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Why is that? Why is a little bit every day better than one big chunk?
It comes down to how our memory works, specifically memory consolidation.
Okay.
Language learning, especially building vocabulary and recognizing grammar patterns, relies on strengthening pathways in your brain. Neural connections.
Like building a muscle.
Sort of, yeah. You need regular workouts, not one massive, exhausting lift once a week. If you just cram a ton of information in during one long session, a lot of it just gets flushed out. Your brain doesn't have time to process and store it effectively.
The forgetting curve kicks in hard.
Very hard. But if you come back to the language every day, even for a short time, you're reinforcing those connections before they have a chance to fade away. You're keeping them active.
Okay, so consistency is king. How much time are we talking about realistically? What's the minimum effective dose?
The sources were pretty consistent on this. You don't need hours. Even just 10 to 15 minutes a day of focused, deliberate reading can make a massive difference over time. Like over a year, it's transformative.
10 to 15 minutes, that's actually manageable.
Right. The key is making it a ritual. Something so small and easy that you barely have to think about it. You don't feel resistance to starting.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. Make it part of your routine. Maybe it's during your morning coffee or on your commute or just before bed.
That's classic habit building psychology, isn't it? Lower the barrier to entry.
Absolutely. If you tell yourself, I need to read for 2 hours, you'll probably put it off. I need to find the perfect time.
Yeah, and the perfect time never comes.
But if the goal is just 15 minutes, you can squeeze that in almost anywhere, anytime. You remove that psychological friction, what's sometimes called activation energy.
Okay.
And that daily return, that consistent input, strengthens those brain pathways far more effectively than one big stressful session. It's the quiet engine that really builds fluency over the long term.
A sustainable routine, that makes perfect sense. But keeping that engine running week after week, month after month, that requires ongoing motivation, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Which brings us neatly to tip number 4, the thing that keeps the psychological fuel tank topped up, the long-term fuel. Celebrate small wins.
Yes, this is crucial. Motivation isn't a constant state. It naturally ebbs and flows. And if you only ever focus on the huge, distant goal, like being fluent, the sheer distance can feel really demoralizing sometimes. You feel like you're not making progress.
Yeah, it's easy to get discouraged.
So the research we reviewed really emphasizes the importance of actively identifying and celebrating your achievements along the way, even the small ones.
Why is that so important psychologically?
It keeps your motivation high, it makes the whole journey feel sustainable, it counteracts that natural human tendency to only focus on what you don't know yet or the mistakes you made.
Okay, so what counts as a small win? We're not talking throwing a party every time you finish a page, right?
No, probably not. A win is really any moment where you recognize tangible progress.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, it could be finishing your very first novel in English. Even if you had to guess, say, 20% of the words, that's still a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, definitely.
Or maybe it's reading a complex news article, like an editorial, and realizing you understood the main argument without needing to look up a single word.
Oh, that aha moment.
Yeah, exactly. Or noticing that a word you learned maybe 3 months ago from your vocabulary notebook just clicks. You see it, you understand it instantly without any effort.
That's a great feeling.
It is. Or maybe recognizing a complex sentence structure, something that used to confuse you, and now you just parse it effortlessly.
So it's less about the external task completion, like finishing a chapter, and more about the internal recognition of your own growth.
That's a perfect way to put it. The psychological insight here is key. Rewarding your effort releases that dopamine we talked about earlier.
Right, the brain's reward chemical.
When you consciously acknowledge your progress, hey, I understood that whole paragraph, or I finished this chapter faster than the last one, you solidify the reading habit.
How so?
You create a positive association. You're literally training your brain to link the effort of reading with a pleasant feeling of accomplishment.
Which makes you more likely to do it again tomorrow.
Exactly. It makes maintaining that daily 10-15-minute commitment feel less like a chore and more like something rewarding in itself. It fuels the long-term journey.
Okay, that's a really strong foundation. We've covered personal interest, the right difficulty level, daily consistency, and celebrating progress. That all sets the stage perfectly.
The mindset and the structure.
Now, let's shift gears. Let's dive into the practical strategies, the active toolkit you deploy the moment you actually sit down with the text. How to boost comprehension and speed right there in the moment. All right, moving from the long-term setup to the immediate mechanics. Shortcut number 5 is a crucial step before you even start reading properly. Checking the map, preview before you read.
Yes, this is such a powerful technique and often overlooked. It's about maximizing your understanding while minimizing the mental effort required.
How does previewing do that?
Well, think about how your brain works. It's incredibly good at filling in gaps and making connections, but it needs a framework first. It needs context.
Okay.
If you just jump straight into the first sentence of a dense article, your brain is trying to do two hard things at once. Decode the language, word by word, and figure out the overall topic, structure, and argument from scratch.
That sounds inefficient, like double the work.
It is.
Yeah.
That's where the checking a map before a road trip analogy from the source material comes in. You wouldn't just start driving randomly hoping you end up in the right city, would you?
No, definitely not. I'd at least glance at the route.
Exactly. So when you preview a text, you're giving your brain that quick glance at the route. You're building a mental scaffold.
So what specifically should we be looking for in this preview phase? How long should it take?
It should be fast. Maybe 60 seconds, 90 seconds tops, depending on the length of the text. You're scanning for structural anchors.
Right.
Look at the title and any subtitles or headings. They often give you the main topic and the key subpoints right away.
Okay.
Read the first paragraph, the introduction, and the last paragraph, the conclusion. Authors usually summarize their main points there.
Makes sense. Intro and outro.
Scan for any words that are bolded or in italics. The author put them that way for a reason. They're usually key terms or concepts.
Right. Visual cues.
Look at any pictures, charts, or graphs and their captions. They often convey a lot of information quickly.
Got it.
And pay attention to transition words, words like however, therefore, in addition, consequently, firstly, finally. These signal the logical flow and how ideas connect.
Okay, so doing that quick scan gives you the big picture, the 30,000-foot view.
Precisely. You get a sense of where the author is starting, what points they'll cover, and where they're likely to end up.
And then when you start reading line by line, your brain can focus more energy on understanding the details because it already has the basic structure in place.
Exactly. It makes the whole process significantly easier and faster. Comprehension goes way up.
Okay, that works great for articles, reports, textbooks. But what about reading fiction? Like novels or short stories? Doesn't previewing spoil the plot?
That's a really good question and a common concern. You adapt the strategy slightly for narrative texts. You're not trying to find out what happens in terms of plot twists. Instead, you're looking at the structure and pacing. Look at chapter titles if they exist. Look for major section breaks within chapters.
Okay, so things like Part 1, Chapter 5, The Escape.
Right. These give you clues about shifts in focus or action. You can still skim the first paragraph or two of a chapter and maybe the last paragraph. This gives you a sense of the chapter's starting point and where the tension might be heading or resolving.
Without giving away the specific events in the middle.
Exactly. You're still building a roadmap, understanding the emotional context or the setting for the chapter, which helps you navigate the descriptive language or dialogue more easily when you read it closely. It primes your brain for the kind of information you're about to receive.
Okay, that makes sense. Adapting the map check for stories. Got it. So we got our map. Now we start the journey, the actual reading. And this brings us to what might be the single biggest speed bump for non-native readers. Shortcut number 6. Becoming independent. Guess, meaning from context.
Ah, yes. This is absolutely critical. This skill is what really separates someone who reads fluently from someone who is essentially just translating word by word.
Because the instinct is strong, isn't it? See an unknown word, immediately stop, reach for the dictionary or phone.
It's a deeply ingrained habit for many learners, but it's detrimental. It completely shatters your reading flow.
Yeah, it kills the momentum.
It interrupts your brain's ability to process the meaning of the sentence or paragraph as a whole.
Yeah.
And it makes the text feel incredibly fragmented and laborious.
Like assembling IKEA furniture with only half the instructions.
Yeah, something like that. You're so focused on the individual pieces, you lose sight of the finished product.
So how do we fight that urge? How do we train ourselves to not stop?
It starts with adopting a mindset of tolerating ambiguity. You have to be okay with not understanding every single word perfectly, at least on the first pass.
That sounds uncomfortable for perfectionists.
It can be,
Yeah.
initially, but it's essential. The strategy is to train your brain to make an educated guess first. Use the clues around the unknown word.
Okay, what kind of clues are we talking about?
You look at the immediate sentence, definitely, but also the sentence before and the sentence after. They provide crucial context. There are a few specific types of clues to hunt for.
Lay them on me.
Okay, first, syntactic clues. What role is the word playing in the sentence? Is it a noun, a verb, an adjective, an adverb? Does it end in ing, aid, higuration, iguration? The grammar gives you clues about its function.
Right. Is it an action, a thing, a description?
Exactly. Second, semantic clues. What's the general topic of the paragraph or section? If you're reading about, say, cooking, and you see the word sauté, you can guess it's a method of cooking, probably involving a pan and some heat.
Context from the subject matter. Okay.
Third, connotation clues. Is the language around the word generally positive, negative, or neutral? If the sentence says, he faced a daunting task, even if you don't know daunting, the word task and the context suggest it's something difficult or intimidating, probably negative.
The overall feeling of the sentence.
And fourth, morphological clues. Look at the parts of the word itself. Prefixes like unopposite, pre before, re again. Or suffixes like able can be done, less without. These can help you piece together the meaning.
Okay, syntax, semantics, connotation, morphology, using those clues to make a guess before reaching for the dictionary.
Right. And often that guess is good enough to understand the main idea of the sentence. You might not get the precise nuance, but you can keep reading.
And this is crucial because there are just too many words in English to learn them all individually, right?
Way too many. That's where things like the 80-20 principle or Zipf's law in linguistics come in. A relatively small number of high-frequency words make up the vast majority of everyday communication.
Like maybe the top 2,000 words cover 80% of conversation.
Something like that, yeah. For written English, it's a slightly larger core, but the principle holds. If you stop for every single word that falls outside that common core, you'll never build reading speed or fluency.
You'll be stopping constantly.
Constantly. By learning to guess effectively, you only pause or look up words that are truly crucial for understanding, or words that seem to appear repeatedly.
So it dramatically boosts your speed just by reducing the number of stops.
Immediately. And maybe more importantly, it trains you to become a more independent, active reader who engages with the text, rather than just passively translating it. You rely less on the dictionary as a crutch.
Okay, tolerate ambiguity, guess from context. That's huge for speed. But we can't just guess everything, can we? We do need to actually learn new words.
Absolutely not. Guessing helps maintain flow, but targeted vocabulary building is still essential for long-term growth.
Which leads us perfectly to shortcut number 7, retention and review. Use a vocabulary notebook effectively.
Yes. If you just rely on passive exposure, just seeing a word while reading studies suggests you might need to encounter that word maybe 10, 15, even 20 times in different contexts before it really sticks in your long-term memory.
That sounds slow and inefficient.
It is. Active retention strategies are non-negotiable if you want to build your vocabulary depth systematically. But just writing down a word in its dictionary definition once, that's usually not enough either. It's too passive.
Right, I've done that. Made lists of words I never looked at again.
Exactly. So we need to talk about what makes a vocabulary notebook entry truly effective for memory.
Okay, what are the must-have components?
The sources consistently point to 3 critical things, and ideally a 4th. First, obviously, the new word itself. Write it clearly.
Got it.
Second, the definition or meaning. And here's a pro-tip. Try to write the definition in simple English if you can, or use a synonym you already know. Keep your brain operating in English as much as possible, rather than immediately translating back to your native language.
Ah, okay. Avoid the translation habit even here.
If possible, yes. Third, and this is arguably the most crucial part, you must write an example sentence using the new word. And this is key. It has to be a sentence you create yourself.
Why my own sentence? Why not just copy the sentence where I found the word?
Because copying is passive recognition. Creating your own sentence is active production. It forces your brain to grapple with the word's meaning, its grammar, its typical usage, collocations. You have to actually use it correctly.
It tests your understanding immediately.
Exactly. Makes the learning much deeper and more functional. And the ideal 4th component, especially for English.
Pronunciation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Add the phonetic pronunciation, if you know the symbols, or even just a note like sounds like. Because English spelling is notoriously unreliable as a guide to sound.
Tell me about it. Okay, so word, simple definition, my own sentence, pronunciation, that's the entry. What about actually remembering it?
That's where the review part comes in. The notebook is useless if it just gathers dust. You need a system for reviewing the words.
How often? Daily?
Not necessarily daily for all words.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the science of memory, specifically spaced repetition systems, SRS, is incredibly useful.
Spaced repetition, like flashcard apps.
Exactly. Those apps automate the process, but you can do it manually too. The basic idea is you review words at increasing intervals.
So maybe I review a new word the next day, then maybe 3 days later, then a week later, 2 weeks, a month.
Something like that. The intervals get longer as long as you remember the word correctly. If you forget it, the interval resets. This tackles the forgetting curve head on.
Why are increasing intervals better than just daily review?
Because it's more efficient. You spend more time on the words you're about to forget and less time on the ones you already know well. This active recall, spaced out over time, is what truly cements words in your long-term memory.
Okay, so it's not just recording, it's systematic reviewing.
Recording plus active creation, the sentence, plus spaced review. That's the trifecta for effective vocabulary building. It ensures you can recognize and recall words faster next time you see them.
That's a really solid professional level strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to shortcut number 8. This one connects our eyes, our brain, and our mouth. The physical connection. Read aloud occasionally.
Yes. Reading is often seen as this purely silent internal activity, just eyes and brain. But particularly when you're developing fluency, bringing in the physical act of speaking, of vocalizing the words, can be incredibly powerful.
Why is that? Is it just about practicing pronunciation?
Pronunciation practice is definitely one benefit, yes.
Yeah.
But it goes deeper than that. There's a dual benefit, really.
Okay, what's the other part?
It's about kinesthetic and auditory reinforcement. When you read silently, especially if you're reading quickly, your mind can sometimes skip over unfamiliar words, or maybe you mispronounce them in your head without realizing it.
Yeah, that internal voice can be wrong.
Totally. But when you read aloud, you are forced to physically articulate each word. You connect the visual form, how the word looks on the page, with the physical mechanics of producing the sounds.
The muscle movements in your mouth, tongue, lips.
Exactly. And simultaneously, you hear the word spoken. You get auditory feedback. So you see it, you say it, you hear it.
Multiple senses engaged.
Right. Seeing a tricky word, like, say, meticulously.
Meticulously.
Yeah. And actually saying meticulously out loud.
Huh?
Feeling your mouth make those shapes, hearing the sound. It links the visual, motor, and auditory systems in your brain.
And that strengthens the memory trace for that word.
Exponentially. When you encounter meticulously again in silent reading later, the recognition is much faster and more automatic because of that multisensory encoding.
Wow, okay. That's more than just pronunciation check.
Definitely. And the other big thing, reading aloud, even for just a few minutes here and there, is fantastic practice for the physical side of speaking English.
How so?
It literally trains your mouth muscles, your tongue, jaw, lips, to produce English sounds, rhythm, and intonation patterns more naturally. English has specific stress patterns in words and sentences.
The musicality of the language.
Exactly. Reading aloud helps you internalize and reproduce that rhythm. You start to automatically chunk longer sentences correctly, pausing in the right places.
So it's not just a reading skill boost.
No. Our analysis really confirmed this. Reading aloud directly improves your overall speaking fluency too, especially for producing more complex sentences that you might understand passively but struggle to say yourself.
Because you're practicing actually saying them.
You're bridging the gap between receptive knowledge, understanding, and productive skill, speaking.
That's a massive takeaway. Reading aloud isn't just for kids learning to read. It's speaking practice in disguise for language learners.
A very effective form of practice.
Okay, amazing. We've built the foundation. We've got the active toolkit for during reading. Now, let's talk about what happens after you finish reading. How do you consolidate that knowledge and expand your overall mastery? All right, final section. We're looking at post-reading strategies now. Shortcut number 9 tackles the variety of what we read. Linguistic flexibility, mix different types of texts.
Yes, this addresses a common plateau problem. A learner might get really good at reading, say, fantasy novels. They know all the words for dragons and quests. But then they get a formal email from their boss, or they try to read a news article about economics, and they feel completely lost again.
Because the language is so different.
Exactly. Sticking to only one genre or type of material, no matter how much you read within it, ultimately limits your linguistic range. Language isn't monolithic. It changes dramatically depending on the context, the audience, the purpose.
We call those different styles registers, right? Formal, informal, technical.
Precisely. And mastery of English reading means being able to navigate these different registers comfortably.
So we need to consciously switch it up. What are the specific benefits of reading, say, a news report versus a blog post versus a scientific paper?
Each format exposes you to different vocabulary sets and distinct writing styles.
Okay.
So novels and stories, great for narrative tenses, past simple, past continuous, descriptive adjectives, dialogue, maybe some common idioms.
Right, character and plot language.
News articles. You'll encounter more formal vocabulary, the passive voice is used frequently, lots of dense noun phrases, objective language words like allegedly, cited, implemented, consensus.
Very different feel.
Totally. Then look at something like social media posts or online forums.
Oh boy.
Right. You get highly condensed language, slang, abbreviations, emojis, cultural references, maybe less formal grammar, things you'd never find in a textbook or a classic novel.
Stuff like ICYMI or spill the tea.
Exactly. And technical manuals or academic papers. They use very precise, often low-frequency vocabulary specific to that field, complex sentence structures, logical connectors.
So reading across these different types forces you to become more adaptable?
It builds linguistic flexibility. You learn to recognize different patterns, different types of vocabulary, different ways of structuring information. You become better at adjusting your reading strategy based on what you're reading.
You don't expect a tweet to read like a legal document.
Hopefully not. This variety leads to much better overall comprehension across all kinds of real-world text you'll encounter. It makes your reading skill truly functional.
Okay, mix it up. Got it. Now, finally, shortcut number 10. This feels like the capstone, the way to really lock in everything you've read. Active recall and comprehension check. Summarize what you read.
This is absolutely crucial. It's the step that bridges the gap between passively receiving information and truly owning it, truly understanding it.
Because it's possible to read something, nod along, even look up words, but then forget most of it an hour later.
Extremely possible. Common even. If you just read, close the book, and walk away, your brain hasn't done the deeper processing needed to move that information into long-term memory. It's called shallow encoding.
So summarizing forces deeper encoding.
Exactly. This is where passive reading stops and active recall begins.
Tell us about the technique. How should we do this summarizing?
After you finish reading a section, maybe a chapter of a book, an article, even just a few paragraphs if it's dense, you need to pause. Take a moment. Then you actively try to retrieve the core information, the main points, the key message. And here's the non-negotiable part. You must do it in your own words.
Not just repeating the author's sentences back?
Definitely not. That's just parroting, which doesn't prove understanding. You need to reformulate the ideas using your own vocabulary and sentence structures.
How can you do that? Like, write it down, say it out loud.
Any of those work. You could jot down a few bullet points, summarizing the main arguments, silently run through a quick summary in your head, or even better, actually say the summary out loud.
To yourself.
To yourself, to your cat, to a study buddy, record a voice note. The act of verbalizing it often makes it clearer. Explaining it to someone else, even hypothetically, is incredibly effective.
Because if you can explain it simply, you truly understand it.
That's the Feynman technique principle, essentially. When you force yourself to articulate the core message using your own language, any gaps in your understanding become immediately obvious.
You realize, wait, I can't actually explain why the author said that.
Exactly. If you can only repeat the author's phrases, you haven't fully internalized the concept. Active recall forces your brain to retrieve the information, sift through it, organize it, and reconstruct it. That's much deeper cognitive work than just passively rereading.
And neurologically, that deeper work leads to stronger memories.
Much stronger, much longer-lasting memories. It's far superior for encoding information. And there's another huge benefit.
What's that?
This technique is powerfully dual purpose. It obviously confirms and solidifies your reading comprehension, but because you're practicing retrieving information and structuring your thoughts into coherent English sentences.
It's also speaking practice, and maybe writing practice if you jot it down.
Absolutely. You're turning that passive input from reading into active output speaking or writing. It simultaneously improves your fluency in those productive skills too.
Wow. So summarizing isn't just a comprehension check, it's an integrated skill builder.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate confirmation that you didn't just read the words, but you absorbed, processed, and can now use the knowledge. It ensures the learning moves off the page and into your active, functional skill set.
That is the perfect final step. Fantastic. Okay, we have just covered a lot of ground. 10 really detailed practical strategies.
We did, from mindset and habits to in-the-moment tactics and post-reading consolidation. Hashtag tag outro. So just to quickly pull it all together, these 10 essential shortcuts, they really emphasize that improving your English reading isn't just about pushing for speed at all costs.
Right.
It's a strategic game. It's about consistency, finding that sweet spot of challenge, engaging actively with the text, and making the learning stick.
We started with that foundation, tapping into your personal interest. Shortcut 1, making sure you calibrate the difficulty using things like the 3 to 5 word rule. Shortcut 2, building that crucial daily habit, even just 10-15 minutes. Shortcut 3, and keeping yourself motivated by celebrating those small wins. Shortcut 4.
Then we moved into the active toolkit for when you're actually reading. Previewing the text like checking a map, shortcut 5. Developing independence by guessing meaning from context, shortcut 6. Using that active vocabulary notebook with your own sentences and spaced review, shortcut 7. And harnessing the power of reading aloud sometimes, shortcut 8.
And finally, we looked at broadening and cementing the skills, ensuring linguistic flexibility by mixing up different types of texts, shortcut 9, and locking in comprehension with that critical final step of active recall through summarizing in your own words, shortcut 10.
Yeah, the advice we've distilled from the experts, it's powerful because it favors smart strategy over just brute force effort.
So if you're listening to this, what's the immediate takeaway? What should you do right now?
I'd suggest picking just one tip from each of those 3 sections we discussed. Motivation, strategy, synthesis.
Okay, so 3 things total to start.
Yeah, keep it manageable, maybe. 1, find an article today about something you genuinely love. 2, try previewing it before you read. And 3, when you finish, try to tell yourself the main point in 1 sentence.
Simple, actionable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Start with those small, focused habits. The bigger changes will follow from that consistency.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just circle back to that core theme that came up early on. Consistency beats intensity. If we really think about the bigger picture here, mastering English reading skills, it's not just about, understanding a novel or passing an exam.
No, it's much bigger than that.
The true power, isn't it, is gaining reliable, consistent, independent access to the absolutely vast ocean of knowledge that's written in English.
That's it, exactly. The entire global library, science, history, technology, news, art, philosophy, business. So much of human knowledge is documented in English.
And being able to read it effectively is the key that unlocks that entire domain. Think about the scale of that. From, highly technical engineering specs,
Nuanced political analysis from around the world,
to ancient philosophical ideas, to the latest medical research.
it's all there.
And mastering this skill, reading proficiency, it becomes the ultimate foundation for continuous self-education, for lifelong learning and discovery.
It really is a superpower in today's world. So the message is, start small, use these strategies, be consistent,
And enjoy the process.
and enjoy the incredible journey of having the world's knowledge open up to you page by page.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for breaking all that down for us, and thank you for joining us for this deep dive into reading mastery. We'll catch you next time.